difference between red muscle and white muscle. Red muscle, you have reason why it's red is because it's got a more blood supply going to it, which means it's going to have more oxygen, more nutrients going to it. This is for sustained swimming. Whereas the white muscle group is it still has blood going to it, but not as much. This is where it stores up energy, and then it can explode, but it quickly fatigues. So that's the difference between white and red muscles. So hupaxal groups, this is embryology, denoting the different groups. Then you have, based upon function, red versus white. And then you will have another way to look at these, and these are in segments. Wow, these are really sharp.
The ones with
I don't need it.
blades that can come out are better.
Well, we are cutting through a shark. I mean, you can make boots out of this. Shark dermis. It's tough.
Apologize if that's not as sharp. I've been using a lot.
I'll never comment on the sharpness of a man's knife. Never. It's a bravado thing. All right. Another way that we can think about the muscles is that the muscles show examples of segmentation. So hupaxal, epaxal, red muscle, white muscle, it's still all in there. But another way we can look at the muscles is in these segments. You see these different segments, and if we continue on through here, it's this W that runs up the fish, essentially. They're in segments, an example of metamerism. And we can split these, making sure I just don't have the... Everybody see those segments? It's not the best example. Keep skinning it. See it there? All right. So, each of these now represent a myomere. A myomere is made up of connective tissue. So the white, the little marks that you see, is the connective tissue. That's called a myoseptum. And then you have the myotome, which are the muscle fibers that are running this direction, longitudinally. So this is a segmented muscles. Myotome plus myoseptum makes up the unit called a myomere. Okay? And so the significance of these muscle fibers going this direction is that when this is working, these fibers are sliding on one another. They're bracing up against the myoseptum, so it bends it this way and bends it that way. It's working, it's relaxing. Everybody good with the muscles? Mm-hmm. And you can see all of those easy on a fresh specimen as well. Let me just cut through some of this here. All right. So we've got the mouth, the buccal cavity. Water's coming through here, it's going across the gills. Gill slits, water's coming out. Food continues on in, from the buccal cavity into the esophagus. Once it goes into the esophagus, it will continue on through. So now, what did I just cut into?
The coelom.
The coelom area. Let me cut some more of this so I'll lay it open. All right. So a lot of stuff in here. Notice that you got this connective tissue. Mm-hmm. We'll collectively call this peritoneum, right? Peritoneum on the side, connective tissue all in here to keep it all, and this is all mesoderm derived, keep everything in place here. And also this denotes the Remember in embryology, we're talking about the coelomic pouches? This is one side, this is the other side, and they all grow together. So as food comes in, it goes into the stomach region. So it goes in from the buccal cavity through the esophagus and into the stomach. The stomach is separated into general portions, the cardiac, which is the upper region, and then the lower pyloric section. If we cut open the stomach, we will expose the folds, internal folds within it. That's called rugae. And that's the reason why, and that rugae allows the stomach to expand out. If you eat Thanksgiving dinner, eat a little bit too much, it really expands. And we've cut open fish at tournaments before and had fish that big and the fish about this big. Now all inside that stomach. Very normal. They weren't cheating, we don't think. So that's rugae. So on the exam, if we have this pinned, you would identify, again, it's a stomach. Actually, you could write down shark, right? What is this pinning? It's a shark, but that's not what we're asking for. We're also not asking for stomach either. Because what's the rule when it comes to identifying a pinned item?
The smallest identification.
Be as specific as possible. So this is rugae. Now, if I was to pin this structure here, what would you say? And this is still the stomach. We haven't got out of the stomach yet. Don't say stomach. Say pylorus region of the stomach. So be as specific as you can. And if you don't know, then ask Jenny or me, saying, are you pinning this? Is it the stomach or do you want the pylorus portion of the stomach? We'll tell you which one. But always be as specific as you can.
Just that cardiac region has the rugae.
No. Rugae's throughout. Cardiac is the upper. Pylorus is the lower. It's no really distinct area that I can say this is, right here's the dividing line. That doesn't happen.
Okay.
When does the stomach end is right here at the pyloric sphincter muscle. And so you see how this is kind of flaccid? This is the small intestine here. This is the stomach here. And you see this little notch? The reason why it's notched is that you've got the real intense pyloric sphincter muscle. Sphincter muscle is a circular muscle, and this closes off and keeps things from moving back in. Except, anybody remember the exception to that? When you're really puking bad, sometimes that relaxes and you puke from your small intestines as well.
Whoa.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Well, like last time I mentioned this, you ever get sick and you think nasty thoughts so you can vomit? Anybody ever done that, or I'm the only one?
I don't know, I can't vomit, so.
I'm not a puker
I
either.
can't do it.
Well, think of that next time. Think you're about to vomit part of your small intestines. So now, keep in mind the stomach is primarily a digestive chamber. You do have some liquid toxins come out in the stomach, but most of the purpose of the stomach is chemical digestion, not absorption. That's what the small intestine is for. And so we're not going to denote, you've got the duodenum, the jejunum, ileum, I think, maybe I just made that up. But those are all histological terms. So just know this as the small intestine. Now when we open it up, you'll see that it's partitioned. You make out those partitions?
Spiral valve.
That's the spiral valve. That's allowing food to go in a corkscrew fashion to increase residency time, to increase absorption. Does everybody see that?
Is that, does it have that so it doesn't have to have a super, super long intestine?
Right. This is one way to increase residency time without having a convoluted small intestines like we have. Then after that, it will go into the large intestine.
Is that feature unique to sharks?
No.
The spiral valve?
No, and I don't like the term spiral valve just because there's also a similar feature in the dipnoian's heart. So it's a circulatory thing that actually ends up keeping oxygenated and deoxygenated water separate. I really don't like the term spiral valve, but in absence of any other term, Sharks have it, lampreys have it, gar have it, and so it's showing that ancestral. This is the ancestral configuration, and that's the reason why you pointed out, to show that similarity. Then you're into the small intestine, and trust me when I say after this you've got a rectum and then an anus. Okay, it's in there. And then the anus comes out in a common opening called a cloaca. And cloaca has evolved independently multiple times in the animal group. So reptiles will have a cloaca, but it's very different from this cloaca. But a cloaca is just that instead of having a urogenital opening and an anal opening like in the bony fishes, it's all contained in this one little fold called the cloaca. That is the digestive system. Food went in, we traveled, and came back out. And keep in mind, when we talk, this is digestive waste that comes out. And then when we start talking about excretion, that's nitrogenous waste that comes out through the urinary tract. Support structures of the digestive system. You recognize the big lobe, large structures as the liver. Liver is usually really big in the shark, and it helps them almost achieve neutral buoyancy. It's lacking a swim bladder, but it's pretty close with these guys. And why would you want neutral or close to neutral buoyancy?
You're not
You don't have to.
You don't have to exert that much energy going this direction. And that's what they think is the reason of the heterocercal caudal, or the heterocercal caudal fin, is that when it hits, it's not only providing forward propulsion, it's also providing lift. And that's then when we have the swim bladder come in the other fish, that's where we have a selection away almost from the asymmetry of the caudal fin. What I say almost selected away from? Because the urostyle still shows evidence of that asymmetry. In addition to that, the liver has gallbladder, which is right about there. Probably this structure here. Gallbladder's used, it's probably that structure. It's really green in fresh specimens, but this one's been cooked in formalin, so it's missing. It's there, it's just not distinct. The liver produces bile, it goes into the gallbladder, and from there it's secreted right here at the pylorus sphincter region. So bile is essentially a detergent that helps to set their break food items apart so it allows for absorption. So it does aid. Pyloric ceca that we find in like the largemouth bass act the same thing. They're enzymes, little blind sacs located here that helps out with digestion. Another structure that helps out with digestion is the pancreas. Organ form in the sharks, tissue form in the bony fishes. So you cannot point out the pancreas in the bony fishes. It's there, but it's diffuse. This has an endocrine, the pancreas has an endocrine function as well as an exocrine function. Exocrine means it deposits its product into a duct and delivered into the intestines, or delivered anywhere. Endocrine means it has a product that's delivered through the bloodstream. So this is where regulation of sugar happens as well. The other support structure, so I think that's everything with digestion. Another organ that we find in here is the spleen, really bright red in a fresh fish, and this is where red blood cells are made. We make it in our bones, but that's a secondarily derived place that you make it. And the spleen is where fish make it. We can live without our spleen, a fish cannot. Another structure that's unique to the sharks, and this is helps with osmoregulation. Everybody remember what osmoregulation is? Maintaining the right amount of salt and water. This is a rectal gland. This takes salt out of the bloodstream, see the blood coming to it, and then it drops into the rectum area. So it just helps get rid of some extra salt. Any questions? Oh yeah. So getting past that, notice that we've got the testes up here near the throat region. Don't look for them here in the bony fishes. You can look for them here in the lampreys and the sharks. But where are they in the bony fishes? Tend to be lower, and then going on up to mammals, right, they're really low. And then this is the kidney region. And if I go in here, somebody asked about the metanephridia duct the other day. Oh, that is disgusting. You can usually see it in here. I don't know what that black stuff is. So kidney, metanephritic duct is what gathers all of it. And I'm not, usually you can see a squiggle. I'm not seeing it right now. But this is all kidney. More specifically, it's the mesonephritic kidney. Okay, any questions about the organs? Next structures that we need to do is the let's go ahead and look at a couple of muscle structures here while we have it. Before I get past these. So you're going to have various constrictor muscles. Most of the muscles is all in the body mass, right in the myomeres. You will have some muscles right around the gills. So here's a few muscles in here, and that helps flare those gills. You've heard that sharks can't breathe unless they're moving. There might be some species like that, but they do have muscles to leave that to pump. So I've seen sharks sitting on the bottom, not moving, and can still make those buccal pumps work with these various constrictor muscles. Another muscle that's common in all fishes is the abductor mandibula. This large muscle mass right here. So how this is configured is it's inserting on both the upper and lower jaw. So whenever this works, it closes that lower jaw. Large muscle. So we have antagonistic muscles. So how do we open the jaw? You do that by this coracoid mandibular muscle. Here's the coracoid mandibular muscle. Coracoid, because you've got a coracoid cartilage on what structure? I've said coracoid probably 50 times today. Coracoid process is on the clitorum. Sharks have a coracoid. So this muscle is attached to the pectoral girdle, specifically the coracoid, and it inserts on the mandibula, or the lower jaw. That's the reason why I call it the coracoid mandibular. Notice how the size of this muscle. This is just one side. That's a pretty thin muscle compared to this huge muscle mass here. And everybody's familiar with alligators, right? You don't want to get your hand inside of it when it clamps down because of the mandibular adductor. But you can hold that powerful jaw by duct tape, because that's the power. Look, how much power do you need to open the mouth? Not much. You need all your power to close it. I think that's, the other muscles that we have listed are the levators and depressors. These are the ones that insert on the pectoral fins. So see these muscles in here? These are the levators, because when they work, what is it doing? Raising. And I'm not, just trust me, same looking structures here, but they're called depressors. When they work, they lower it. Well, that's about all the movement a shark has. They can do this, they can do this. Now, bony fishes, they can do a lot more with it. They can span this out. They can actually use thrust. Fins are not thrusters. Fins are maximizing the power of the muscles into the water. So the fins aren't moving. It's the muscles that thrust. And even in sharks, they're not thrusters. They're more as keels. That out of the way.
Sharks can't back up, or can
Correct.
What does that mean?
Well, I mean, they can't
swim backwards.
Some fish can sit there and do this, and they can turn around and go backwards and move like this. Sharks can't do that. So if you're being attacked by a shark, get behind it. And if you, yeah, if you remember to do that while the shark is attacking you, I'm proud of you. All right, so now let's move to the heart. So a lot of times this gets torn, but this structure here is the sinus venosa. See this real paper thin? And in artery, capillary, circulatory system world, sinus means an area without muscle. Sinus venosa, venosus is in reference to a vessel that's doing what? Carrying blood to the heart. So this sinus venosus, from there it goes into the atrium. From the atrium it is pumped into the ventricle. And from the ventricle, it goes into the conus, or sometimes referred to as bulbous arteriosus. This is an elastic fiber that as soon as it's pumped, it fans out and then slowly releases the blood. And so in the live specimens, this is white, but it's not so white, it's cooked.